Hi, my name is Lois Landry, and I am one of the two candidates running in the upcoming municipal election in District 2 here in Richmond County. I'd like to start by taking this opportunity to thank Tell-Il for giving each candidate the opportunity to come in here and have a few minutes in front of their equipment so that we can have a conversation with you. I'd like to thank Tell-Il not just for what they have been doing today, but for what they have been doing every day for the last 30 years. For the last 30 years, Tell-Il has been connecting residents, especially during election time. I've been door knocking and I've been speaking to residents in the community. And I was speaking to an elderly lady not long ago. And I introduced myself and I talked to her a little bit about who I was and what I had to offer. And as I was leaving, I said, you know, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to call. And she looked at me very confidently and said, okay, great, thank you very much, but I'm sure I'll hear about you on Tell-Il. So I think that speaks to the residents' confidence in what Tell-Il's mandate really is, which is to connect people to each other and to folks who are looking to represent them at election time and beyond. So thank you very much to Tell-Il for this opportunity and for supporting residents for the last 30 years. It's important, I think, for voters to hear a little bit about the candidates in this election. And so when I go door to door, I usually start that conversation by saying, hi, I'm Lois, I'm Sonny and Margot's daughter. And my dad and mom lived here for most of their lives. My mom was from North Sydney, but my dad's family's been here for generations. And my dad was a phys ed teacher, my mom was a public health nurse. My dad, for most of his life, was just pure fun and joyfulness. And he got that fun and joyfulness because he relished community and this community that he lived in and grew up in. My mom was a public health nurse, and she was somebody who was hardwired to serve her community. My mom was a public health nurse before early intervention, before palliative care, and she also was a municipal councillor back in the late 70s and early 80s. And so service to community was really what she was all about. I remember phone calls that came into our house day and night from folks looking for support because they needed someone to reach out to. And so I go into this election certainly hope that some of that dedication to service has rubbed off on me. As I hit the doorsteps, though, I have more appreciation than I had before about the number of folks who have come to our community who didn't live here before. So maybe they're newcomers from away that have never had a connection, or maybe they're people who lived away for a really long time, and that includes my own husband, actually. And so what has been great on those doorsteps and having those conversations is there is nothing better than having somebody new to the community to remind you and to help you appreciate things that some of us probably take for granted. Not just the spectacular beauty of where we live, the stunning sunsets, the gorgeous scenery, but also what it means to be us in a community and to be a part of a community. So that's been a really important part of my doorstep visits. So for those folks who maybe don't know a little bit about my family's history or me, I do try to talk to them a little bit about the fact that I have been, I was a public educator, I was a principal teacher for 30 years in Richmond County. And what I came to realize after I retired is that I am just too young to retire. But at this point in my life, I am really lucky to be able to do the things that I love. That's a great thing about being in your 50s. And so what I love is to be connected to this community. So going door to door has certainly been a lot of work, and it will continue to be a lot of work. I think I've hit maybe half the houses. But I have to say it has been nothing but a labor of love. And so on that point, I really would like to take this opportunity to thank residents that I have had a chance to talk to so far. Certainly not everyone is going to vote for me, but I have been to many, many doorsteps, and every single person that I have met has been nothing but gracious and generous with their time. And we live in an era where talk about politics is not always positive, and there is a lot of negativity out there. So I really just want to say how grateful I am to residents that I've talked to so far for being so generous and giving me an opportunity to speak with them. As I go door to door, there are lots of things that residents want to talk about. Several topics have come up. Many of those topics are actually what happens in their immediate circumstance, in their immediate area. So things like highways and trees that are blocking your view when you're trying to make a turn safely, and culverts and what it means when there's heavy rains and what poor road maintenance might do to your property and the property of others around you. But also things like, I can't launch my boat where I used to be able to. And how do we celebrate and save the landmarks that are important to us? Issues about affordability across the spectrum. Certainly Port Royal Bridge, McCackern Road, issues about land use, bylaws, and what coastal protection bylaws might look like in Richmond County going forward. Had a lot of conversations with folks about home care and the supports that they would like to see available to them as they age and age well in their own homes, and a lot of other issues related to seniors. We are clearly at a pivotal point in Richmond County. For years, really all we did was navigate decline. We were dealing with dwindling population, declining school enrollment, shrinking economy, and fewer opportunities for young people who wanted to stay here. The tides really do seem to be shifting, though. Our population is increasing, our school enrollment is increasing, and we're seeing economic growth that we haven't seen in a very long time, with more growth to come. This council will therefore not only have to support growth, but start to deal with the challenges that come with that growth. So I've been having conversations with residents about a lack of affordable housing for residents. And that doesn't just mean folks who are already living here looking for housing. It means conversations about how can my son or daughter move back home if they can't find a place to live, or if the price of property has gotten to the point where they can't afford to come back to build here or to buy. And also for seniors or people with mobility issues who are living in houses with stairs, for example. And if we wanted to downsize, what would that look like for us? Where would we go if we wanted to find a place that suited us and made us more able to age in place? Certainly, I've also been having conversations with folks about the importance of communicating using websites and using social media like Facebook, but there are certainly a group of people for whom that kind of approach to communication doesn't help them. If you don't have internet, if you don't have Facebook, there are a group of people who I think are feeling like they're being left behind. And so we're lucky to have Tell-Il who supports those folks. But I think we need to be careful that we don't leave people out of conversations because our communication approaches have been strictly more Facebook/social media. And that stems from, I think, a sense of isolation that many residents in Richmond County have talked to me about. I spoke to a lady not long ago who talked about how since COVID she had not left Isle Madame. Just that sense of, in order to stay safe, we stayed in our little homes, and what that means to folks, particularly older residents in the county, and that sense of isolation and what that does to people in their mental health and their physical health, and how they stop feeling connected to community. And I've certainly also had conversations with groups about burnout of volunteers, and community groups are trying to keep our traditions alive, and yet the keepers of those traditions are starting to get up in age. And how do we provide support to organizations that have been the foundation of our community, and how do we help them maintain that opportunity for us to come together and gather in those spaces? So this is meant to be, between 10 and 15-minute interview. And so I really thought a lot about, okay, well, I could take each of those questions I've heard on doorsteps, and I could stand here and try to tell you how I would respond to that. That eats up more, that takes way more than 15 minutes to get through that. So one of the things that I'll say is that moving forward, win, lose, or draw in this next election, I am really committed to this community. And so I'm happy to speak to residents individually or in small groups or large groups about what those topics mean to individual folks or groups. So I'm happy to have those conversations, but I thought what I'd do here in this format is to speak to you a little bit today about the approach and the values that I hope to bring to the council table in dealing with those issues and others when they come up. And I thought I'd do that and frame that with a story that I tell often about how I have approached work in my previous life, whether it was my work in schools or my work on community groups. And the story goes like this. I applied for a job. I saw a job posted. It was a principal's position. I had never been a principal before, and that position really interested me. Threw my hat in the ring, filled out my application, had an interview, and at the time I was working at a school in St. Peter's. And I got the call at work, congratulations, Lois, you were the successful applicant, and I was very, very pleased. I was walking down the hall, and the principal, who had been the principal there for a really long time, walked by and said, congratulations, Lois, good for you. And I said kind of jokingly, oh, thank you very much. Do you have any words of wisdom for me? And Mary Ellen stopped and said, not jokingly, very seriously, she stopped, looked me square in the eye and said, yes, Lois, I vowed when I became a principal that I wouldn't accept for anybody else's child what I wouldn't accept for my own. And I don't think there are very many times that I could look back and say that a sentence or two has impacted the way I conducted myself as much as that one did. And I will certainly tell you, no question, I didn't always do the right thing, but I have always done what I thought was right. And so what I believe a municipal councillor should do is to help individual residents and groups of residents get access to the support they are entitled to or should be entitled to from the municipality. But I also believe it is the councillor's responsibility to help individuals and groups get the support they are entitled to or should be entitled to from the provincial and federal government. So I believe that we need to be a conduit to those other levels of government. And so I intend to be a councillor that I would expect my councillor to be for me, for my community groups, for my loved ones. So there are some commitments that I'll make to you, and here's what those look like. I will always take your call. There might be times when I am doing something else, but I would always return your call. I will meet with anybody who wants to meet with me, individually, small groups, and I will work on your behalf and I will work on the behalf of the groups that you represent, the same way I would expect my municipal councillor or my other representatives to work on my behalf. I will work as hard for you as you need me to work for you. And I won't shy away from difficult conversations. If I couldn't help you get what you want, then you will hear that from me, and you will hear that from me face to face. And that is my commitment to you in whatever position I hold. I hope to be the councillor, but if not, then I can commit that in every aspect that I conduct myself. And so in closing, I want to thank Tell-Il for giving each of the candidates in the upcoming election across Richmond County this opportunity. And I want to take time to say thank you to the viewers for taking the time to hear what I have to say going into this this municipal election. There is one last thing I'd like to say. One of the things that I am the most proud of living in this community is that for people who don't know, Richmond County has the highest voter turnout in the province in most elections, and that is no joke. We get the democracy we deserve. So while I certainly would like to ask residents for their support in District 2 on October 19th, I'd like even more importantly to ask that no matter who you're voting for, that you get out on election day or during the advance polls and have your say. So again, thank you to the folks here at Tell-Il for taking the time to give me this opportunity, and I wish you all a good day.